Mercedes' season in 2023 has not gone as planned. They expected a big jump forward in quality after a tough 2022 in Brackley, returning to compete for the world title with Red Bull and Ferrari. However, the Milton Keynes team has sped off, leaving those behind unable to threaten Max Verstappen's dominance. Ferrari and Mercedes are battling for second position in the Constructors World Championship, and just below that fight, McLaren has taken a significant jump ahead, which could also be a threat next year. But maybe even more problematic for Mercedes was the fact that the W14 was exceeded by two clients, first Aston Martin and now McLaren, putting the provider in an awkward position. And to combat the two client teams, Mercedes has just revealed intentions to update the W14 in order to increase performance and begin development for 2024. In Austin, a modified floor for the W14 based on next year's development path arrived. According to Mercedes' head of race strategy, Rosie Waite, the team plans to develop the car in the next races to enable them to not only compete for second place in the championship with Ferrari, but also to start preparing until 2024. Mercedes ceded their constructors' title to Red Bull following the new ground effect rules that entered into the sport in 2022, placing third in last year's championship after winning 8 straight constructors' titles from 2014 to 2021. However, following a difficult start to the season, they revised the design of the W14 in Monaco, and while performances have improved, they've yet to win a race. They're currently battling Ferrari for second place in the constructors' standings. Waite said when debriefing that while the team's focus had shifted to the W15, they were still striving to enhance the current car in the hopes of securing P2. Ultimately, this decision is never as black and white as it appears, Waite replied when asked if it is worth Mercedes giving improvements to the W14 for the rest of the season. While we will have to use the winter to make more fundamental development to the W15, there is plenty of things we can do with the current car which will both make it faster and aid our learning and understanding to develop next year's car. And that's what we've already been doing and will continue to do. The new parts we bring to the car do both, hopefully add performance and make the current car go faster, but they're all specifically targeted around areas where we need to further our understanding. And the things we will learn from testing them this year will directly feed into the development of the W15. We also mustn't lose sight of the fact that we are in a really tight battle for P2 with Ferrari, and that position in the championship is really important to all of us. And so we have upgrades in the pipeline and will continue to keep bringing them to the car. Mercedes Trackside Engineering Director Andrew Shovlin has also spoken about the potential alterations that may be implemented in the future. He disclosed that the Silver Arrows are working on some interesting projects. "We were doing a lot of work to try and solve some of the problems on this car, make sure that we don't have them next year," said Shovlin. "We have moved it forward. The car we had previously, in 2022, that tended to be an awfully long way off in qualifying. It was generally racing a bit better. The performance was very track-specific, so some areas we have improved. The big issue? We're just not quick enough. So we need to find a good chunk of performance to challenge Red Bull in particular, but the other thing is the field is now super close. So you look at some of the gaps we had 12 months ago, and you can have a decent qualifying position. You might be 4th or 5th on the grid, but you were 8, 9 tenths off. Now if you do that, you end up getting bumped in Q1 or Q2. So there's lots for us to work on, and certainly some of the work will be making sure we can give the drivers the confidence in the car that they're lacking at the moment. And that's a big area. We've got some interesting projects that hopefully they'll come off." The Brackley-based team is now second in the Constructors' Championship, looking to maintain its lead above Ferrari. With 5 race weekends remaining in the season, the two teams are separated by only 30 points. Thus, Mercedes will unveil a new floor for the W14 at the Austin Grand Prix, a decision that corresponds with the development trajectory for next year after a season that hasn't gone as planned. The disclosure, confirmed by technical director James Allison, is a deliberate step to get insights into the car's performance and future possibilities, but with cautious expectations. "We will bring a new floor to the track in Austin, but don't expect major steps forward. It will give us a bit of gain from a chronometric point of view, but above all, it will help us understand if we're on the right path," commented Brackley's technical director James Allison. One of the recurrent problems with the W14 has been echoes of the W13's porpoising, a performance constraint that Mercedes is eager to eliminate. "We would like to get rid of bouncing completely," said James Allison. "Many teams are still dealing with a bit of bouncing, and this can also vary depending on the wind or the weight conditions or not. This new floor will provide Mercedes a wider operating window in terms of the downforce they generate at various ride heights. Last year, we designed a car that had to take advantage of ground clearances that were too low. This year, too high, Toto Wolff admitted as the season began. Now we think we know what and how to choose. This update is projected to make little difference this season, but will serve as a foundation for next year's W14 car, which will be more in line with this philosophy. The 2024 car will be important because, given the regulatory changes in 2026, we still have 2 years to try to win the World Championship, and next year's car will also have to be the basis for the following one, explained Allison. Mercedes hopes to launch a car that is fundamentally sound from the start in 2024, making it easier to uncover its potential than managing a capricious diva like the W14, which was also born with technological constraints. The W14 is a flawed car, and its behavior varies greatly from track to track, as shown with the SF23 and AMR23. Meanwhile, the McLaren MCL60 is proving its worth on a variety of tracks. In Suzuka, there were some things we liked about our car, and others not so much. In Singapore, there was everything we liked and nothing we didn't like. Qatar is a bit of a middle ground, examined James Allison. He went some way towards explaining the differences in performance, with the W14 appearing to be doing well in Qatar. One issue that occasionally becomes a constraint is bouncing, which the Mercedes W14 still has. We would like to get rid of it completely. We're still dealing with a bit of bouncing, and this can also vary based on the wind or whether there is wake or not. However, this is not the only limitation of the W14. The bouncing is an inherent difficulty with these cars. However, Red Bull has demonstrated that it is manageable. These cars are different from the previous ones, but in the end, the setup work is the same. The surface is more important, but then we always talk about ground clearance, stiffness, air vents, and blah blah blah. Driver involvement will be increased during the 2024 season in order to achieve a higher baseline. The team's drivers and technicians have not only concealed the W14s and publicly complained about them, but they've also privately protested about them. There have been various discussions on this topic inside the team. The race weekend is a time in which we spend more time with the drivers, but there is too much pressure to do well on the track, and therefore, having more in-depth meetings with the drivers at the factory helps us to understand better their requests, which, however, are in line with what we're working on, explained Allison. Mercedes' goal is to provide a new and superior car because, according to the technical director, when a car is born well, it is then simple to unlock its potential. The Mercedes package for this year retains some technological constraints from the previous season. The W14 has a too advanced frame and PU packaging created and tailored for the zero side pod idea. Lewis Hamilton has been grumbling about the car's seat position since last year, which according to analysis results in an extremely reactive front. However, this means that the rear offers drivers less confidence, preventing the 7-time world champion from performing at his best. Russell has also expressed dissatisfaction with the car's handling, but possibly not to the same extent as his teammate. George loves a softer setup, while for performance reasons we went for stiffer setups. These adjustments vary from race to race because we can't go to Suzuka with a Singapore setup, but George is certainly referring to a softer basic setting. The question is if all these changes, upgrades, and involvements from the drivers will be enough to close the gap to the front. With the sudden rise of Aston Martin at the start of the season, or the resurgence from McLaren mid-season, has shown Mercedes that it is indeed possible. But the philosophy needs to be on point, which it wasn't for Mercedes in the beginning. So it will be interesting to see if this new updated floor will be a massive leap forward in terms of porpoising and perhaps performance. What do you think? Have Mercedes got enough brainpower to return to the grid in 2024 as a potential title challenger? Or are there bigger problems within the team? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. It'll be interesting to see what Mercedes will unveil next week in Texas.